Well, at a certain age, I find I have history with the players and performers in this town. For the record, I was one of broadcaster Terry Moore's first radio producers, and when I was working in the fashion business, I often called professional model and talent agency diva Ramona Beauchamp to book rampant photographic models. One romantic day, the two of them hooked up. I was also there to witness that. Well, sort of. They are they are a couple who continue to chase and create, and it is my pleasure to welcome Terry Moore and Ramona Beauchamp to Studio 4 to tell us more about you two. I know way too much. We should not be doing this interview. You know way too much about me, too.
Indeed we do.
Indeed you do. So let's just keep this on a very sane level.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Sure.
How did you two meet? I know I was around, but I wasn't, at the restaurant.
Bob Dawson. You remember Bob?
Of course I do.
Okay, the late Bob Dawson.
Yes,
he was
he's
my
in the heaven, in the broadcaster heaven now.
And he was my producer at CKNW. So he came to me one day and he said, you know what? You should interview Ramona Beauchamp. And I said, who is Ramona Beauchamp? And he said,
where did you live?
Well, you know
she was
me.
like an icon in the
I
city.
know,
Blanche
but,
McDonald, Ramona Beauchamp.
No, he doesn't know how to dance either.
I don't
there are
either,
things he just doesn't.
She became my agent. So anyway, he introduced us. He phoned them up and said, we'd like to have Ramona Beauchamp on the show. So you tell the story from that point.
Oh, well, I didn't want to do the interview. And,
well, he didn't know who you were to start with.
No.
Not a good sign.
Not a good sign at all.
Plus, you were a bit, not shy, but...
I was tired of the interviews, actually,
Okay.
and the silly questions
That's
that
another
they
story.
asked. And I didn't want to go to the interview, so I told my assistant that she had to do the interview. She came back and she said, Ramona, you have to do the interview. And I said, that's silly. And I picked up the phone and I phoned Bob and I said, Bob, I've got a cold, I feel miserable. And that was the truth. I really did have a cold. I don't want to do this interview. And Evelyn knows more about the agency than I do. So Bob said, fine. And so I went back to Evelyn and I said, now you can do the interview. So a little while later, the phone rings and it's Bob. Bob says, Terry said either you do it or there's no interview.
It's either Ramona Beauchamp or you get nothing.
Or no
That's
one.
It.
No, I know you were tireless about that, and
Yes.
Bob Dawson was persistent, as
Yes.
all good producers are,
Yes.
because you know what a good producer I was.
I do, because
Yes.
you were great.
Was I?
You were great. Fabulous.
That's good to
And
know.
you're even better doing this than you were doing the
well,
producing.
thank you. Well, thank you. See, you didn't know you were training me.
Well, I also didn't realize that you were amongst the top 25 influential women in Canada today.
Says Chatelaine Magazine.
Says Chatelaine Magazine. But,
better call them up.
But it's so good to see you doing this to where you were 5 years ago. Our hearts stopped when we heard that you were ill, and look at you, you were back better
That's
than you
right.
were before.
I'm a tough one.
You kidding?
I have a brain aneurysm, and I live to tell the
You
story.
did
You
indeed.
know how
Yeah,
it is.
I do.
So back to you. The romance with the camera. I know you had a romance with him, but with the camera, how did that begin?
We moved to Victoria, and it's beautiful in Victoria. I retired. I picked up my camera. With the business I was in, I had the opportunity of working with some of the most fantastic photographers in Canada and Europe, and I always wanted to do it.
And you've always had a keen eye.
Oh, incredible.
So
he says because you picked him.
I'm referring to the way she takes pictures.
Okay, but she's
Enough about me. What about her?
yeah, and the odd picture of you,
Yeah, sure.
perhaps.
Yeah.
So I started taking pictures, and I decided I wanted it to be more than just taking pictures. So I looked into various materials that I could produce my photographs, and found that I could produce archival photographs.
Which means?
Which means that you can buy a photograph that will last and be able to be passed down from generation to generation.
Okay, is that because of a treatment to the picture, or just because you don't hang it in the light, or what?
No, it's the product, the materials that are used to develop. Yeah. And a gentleman that just bought a photograph from me, he has cancer, and his wife was a gardener. And there was a photograph that struck him, and he bought it, and he gave it to his children remember
Mama.
Yeah.
Well, art inspires, as we know.
Indeed.
Yes.
A cold winter's night. I'm saying your art is simply beautiful, or your pictures are simply beautiful, but they're also haunting, and you describe it.
Well,
You're the agent.
Here's. Oh, hey, we switched positions.
Hey,
So
what happened
let me
on a cold winter's night?
Let me tell you what this is. This particular picture that you've got up on the screen right now, that was taken in Oak Bay, okay? And the key to all of Ramona's pictures is that they have to, when you look at them, people will say, well, I can take pictures too. The timing, being there at the right time, the right lighting, the right sky effect, all those things. You can't duplicate them again.
No,
it's
and
a
you
once in a
wait,
lifetime. That's it, and you get the shot.
As you know, great photographers are very patient.
Indeed, and you've got
Waiting
to
for
be.
the light or the sun to drop.
How in the name of goodness she's patient being married to me, I have no idea.
I don't know.
Nevertheless,
That's why
there it
she is patient, because she is married to you.
Okay, there we go.
Right? Remember when he did Household Hints on the radio? It was the
God.
most popular
It was huge.
segment. It was huge.
We would get phone calls at 11 o'clock at night. How do you get wine out of my white rug?
Oh yeah, out of my carpet. Then he wrote a book called Toothpaste and Peanut
And
Butter.
peanut butter, yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah, that
Big
was it, yeah.
seller.
And just because he cooks, people would phone and say, well, how do you barbecue with...
How do you make fettuccine
Fettuccine
Alfredo?
Alfredo, yes,
I know.
yes.
It was our most popular segment on radio way
That's
back
huge.
then. One woman called in one day. I'll never forget it. I don't remember much, but I remember this. She had a pink coat. She had a stain on it. And you said, well, if you would just get one of those Pepto-Bismol tablets, wet it a little bit, and put it on the stain, you never know.
I
And
actually said that?
You said that. I thought, I was figuring you made it up, pretty much. Okay, back to these lovely photographs and pictures. They're art, really. Awakening. Awaken your senses and live life to the full. You always have something with the picture. Is it on the back? Is it on the bottom?
They're limited editions, and
Okay.
it's written on the back that what limited edition it is, and the name of the photograph, of course. And I have a website, and people can,
Okay, is that Artistic Legacies?
yes.
.ca.
Yes,
Yes.
artistic
I knew
legacies,
you'd
that's
add
the-
that if
Yes,
I didn't.
yes.
And people can see them at Lux Home Interiors
In
in
Victoria.
Victoria at the corner of Douglas and Hillside.
Okay, so you're not really retired.
No,
No.
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 Are you
I'm
still
on
doing
air.
radio?
Still doing some work on air over at CFAX,
Okay.
1070 Victoria.
Do
yeah.
you remember when you were singing opera and we went to see Pavarotti?
I do.
He dragged me
Yes.
to see Luciana Pavarotti.
Greatest
Before-
tenor that's ever lived.
You said, and I
Yes.
said, I don't think I
No,
do
yeah.
opera.
You said, no.
And you fell in love
And I
with
fell in love with
Yes.
Pavarotti before
Yes.
anybody, before the world fell in love with Pavarotti. And then we went to dinner at Francesco Alongi's. Can I tell?
Yes, you can tell
and
the story.
Pavarotti came. He was there too.
Yes.
Yes.
And Mr. Big Time, you sang just a tiny area, as I recall.
Just a
Some of
little
the
bit.
North Shore opera was
Just-
like
Just a little bit going
just a
on.
little bit
Yeah.
going on
I couldn't
there.
hit the high C's that night.
It's a good thing.
Good
It's a
thing,
good thing because
yes.
Pavarotti was really into the pasta more
He
than
was,
us,
yes,
I have to tell
yes.
you. Okay, back to the pictures.
Yes.
From Mary's Garden, where seeds of friendship flourish. Who's Mary?
Mary is a dear friend of mine, Mary Smith. Her garden is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And Mary is the type of person that is welcoming, kind, thoughtful. She's so generous with her friends, and
Come and take a picture anytime.
where the seeds of friendship grow.
How great. Morning Mist, the morning mist over Island Wilderness. How beautiful is that?
Oh no, that shot was a really difficult time shot. That was a shot that you really had to wait, and Ramona waited for ages, and all of a sudden it was perfect. The fog was coming up off the water.
Right.
This is just outside of Sydney. Now we just spent a month in Sydney at the Sydney Inn Suites, a beautiful little hotel, because we're
Right.
renovating a house, and we were looking out to see whether we could duplicate that shot at any other time, and you can't. It was that once in a moment when the mist was coming off the water, the fog was being
great.
and it's a fabulous
And
shot.
you, of course, whipped up the breakfast and brought the coffee and the rum.
I did. Yes, I did.
So your eyes roll round and round in the head.
Yes.
Good.
You should be my agent.
I may be able to get you a gig. You never know.
You could do it.
You know, I mean, as Bro Jake always says, they'll drag me out of here
that's
by
it.
my shoes. I'm an entertainer, don't you know? Renewed hope, the good life, the good life.
Yes, it's very evident in Sydney. On the water, the yachts, the gorgeous yachts that are
Sure.
come and go.
And tell me about, oh, wow.
Isn't that something? Just like
Yeah.
glass.
Who owns
Beautiful.
those yachts? Any idea? You should probably
Well-
They
figure
come
that out
from
for
all
when I
over the
come to
world.
visit.
I phoned my banker about one of them, and he said, forget it.
I know, I know. But you know, we could walk the dock.
we do that a lot.
You just never
We
know.
do
We're
that.
chatty.
Yeah.
It has, We have a gorgeous yacht dock to walk.
Really?
Yeah.
It really is beautiful.
Okay, so get out that bikini,
Yes.
Ms. Beauchamp.
Oh, right.
Remember those days.
These are gone.
Now we get out the little
Yeah,
kimono.
and I will not wear a Speedo, because if I do that...
You won't?
No, no.
No more. That's your
No,
Speedo days.
no,
are
no,
over?
they're over. It wasn't the last time I did that.
Alas.
Greenpeace picketed, so that was it. I'm not doing that anymore.
Totally understandable. Yes, totally. Bewitched, bothered and bewildered, I want to say, but bewitched.
It was a garden in Pender Island, and it was so incredible. I was totally taken with the photograph, and I was
How
totally
great.
bewitched.
What kind of camera do you use?
Canon, of course.
Canon, of course.
All
Really?
Canon products I used.
And what about you? Can you take a picture?
Are you kidding?
Can you sing? Yes.
Yes,
He
but
tap dances. And
they
Always has.
all the guys that I've worked with from the days that you and I were at CJOR to the WX days to CKNW, they look at me and they say, give him a left-handed monkey wrench. He still doesn't understand mechanics.
Never has. But
No,
I remember when we made you a shingle because you did a lot of medical shows.
I did.
And so we made him an official doctor, Dr. Terry Moore.
Yeah.
Because sometimes he would ask one of those
Fanny.
questions. Isn't it true, sir, that if the brain does a certain thing that the so-and-so goes in, by the time he was done, he had answered the question? He
Yes.
said, Terry, you're not the neurosurgeon. The neurosurgeon is in the studio. Ask him. But you knew so much because you did so many
Fanny,
interviews.
The phone rings. It's unbelievable.
Still, after all these years.
Just because he does medical shows, people believe he's got the answer for everything.
No, it is
And
true.
we call him Dr. Moore.
Right. Well, we faked it for a long time. People used to call me and ask about their mortgages. I know because
Yeah.
you do a show on mortgages,
Sure.
and somebody figures you must know. Fanny
Sure.
will know, and I think, oh,
Oh, yeah.
you should call someone else. Call my accountant.
Don't tell all the trade secrets.
No,
though.
I won't. We'll zip the lip,
Okay.
which is not
Yeah.
easy for us. No, certainly not. Well, for you, it's easier, but for himself, you know how it is.
Yes.
Congratulations on this, really.
Thank
It's a
you.
great body of work, and it's beautiful work, and you're inspired and not retired, and I like that.
Yeah, well, I had an uncle that worked in the broadcasting industry in Ontario. And he said to me when I was down there being a cub announcer at CFRV in Toronto one day, he said, I'm going to retire in a year. I said, why? And he said, well, that's what they have to do. And you know what? He told me, he said, my concern is if I retire, I'll be dead in 2 years. And you know what? 2 years later, he was dead.
Look at Andy Rooney.
Yeah.
Hello. No, I'm the oldest person on television. Thank you.
It's so good to see you.
Good to see you again.
Nice
Really
to
great
see
to
you,
see you.
for sure.